What's up, everyone? Welcome to episode 75 of the Ceres podcast. How's November been for you guys so far? I know we're only, 6 or 7 days in? Has it been busy, quiet with this lockdown? Is this lockdown different to the last one? It probably feels a bit different, actually, because you can still get out and do your thing. It just means you can't do certain things, which, I don't know, it just feels like the new norm, and I hate that word too. We've been hearing mixed signals about trade, especially over bonfire and the firework weekend, which again is pretty normal. Fish and chip shops aren't usually traditionally busy when everyone's spending money on fireworks. As you know, there's always something new happening here at Ceres. It never stops, and I hope it doesn't. As you may know, we've launched quite a few new products on our online store. The new seasoned rice flour is flying out, so much so that we've nearly run out, and we have lots more being made. The pan cleaner for sure is flying off the shelves too. It is really pretty cool though, because I think people are genuinely excited about cleaning out the pans. Every day I'm getting photos from customers on social media saying, I've cleaned my pans, what do you think? And I think that it's so good that, people are just cleaning those vessels. And it's not all about stripping back all that carbon and having a plain sort of surface to work on. But if you've got a cleaning regime and it's cleaner, well, it's a no-brainer as well. Your oils last longer, the pan's more efficient. There's just so many benefits. So it's not all about just stripping it back to bare bones, although that feels nice too. Moving forward, our new I Am Gluten-Free labels, they're moving pretty swiftly too. We're also working on new products, and we hope to launch one very soon too. If you've had our monthly email, you will know that this month's offer is 25% off fish cake mix. To get yours, set up an account on our website, choose the fish cake mix, and use the code November25 for 25% off. We've already sold a considerable amount, so get yours whilst you can. If you haven't heard of our fish cake mix, then you need to know that it's the perfect solution for making homemade fish cakes fast, easily, with no skill whatsoever. Literally anyone can do it. We've got so many recipes too to help you get going. Remember, make sales when you're open and profit when you're closed, and the fish cake mix just makes complete sense in that respect. It is also probably worth you being on our mailing list. We don't spam the hell out of you, and just once a month we send a roundup of last month's news and a discount coupon, so you can't go far wrong. And you can unsubscribe if you don't like it. I recently completed an article and updated it to our website about maintaining cash flow, or even increasing cash flow. Even if you don't know the terminology, you'll know how important cash flow is to running your business. There are so many outgoing costs when running a hospitality business, and any business. In this article, we look at managing your menu, managing your inventory. Why have stock just sitting in the freezer weeks after weeks after weeks? It costs you to store it, and it's tying up your valuable money. Looking at flexible working hours to help with wages. Again, why have staff all coming in when you open when you don't get busy for 2 hours? So you might as well keep on top of that. And keeping on top of VAT and so many more tips. On to today's guest. Charlie Terry is the CEO of CEEK Marketing. He is a marketing consultant, board advisor, expert on social media and search engine optimization, and so much more. But what I really found interesting, because it changed my mind to some degree, is his work with influencers. It really changed my mind on how I view them. I think before this, I just really thought of the word influencer as a dirty word, something that only applied to Gen Z. But Charlie changed my view on this. One question that really stands out to me is, can you set up a business today and not have a website and not have social media presence? And I think the answer is an overwhelming no. If you want to find out more about Charlie Terry and CEEK Marketing, then visit www.ceek.com or look for Charlie Terry on all social media platforms. On to the episode with Charlie, and I hope you enjoy. Charlie, welcome to the Ceres podcast.
Good to see you. How you doing?
Not bad yourself?
Always good.
Yeah, great offices you've got here.
Thanks. When you were waiting, did you get any treats or no?
No, I just grabbed a coffee.
Little coffee.
Yeah. I tell you what though, like it's not here, not your office, but outside your office. It feels a bit sad.
It's horrible. Yeah, there's a lot of closures along here. So we're just in Victoria, and the building itself as well. Straight after lockdown, when we were one of the first kind of teams, the team kind of forced me really to get back in, and although we were kind of split around the building, it was a weird place. Like we were just discussing before we started, Google in the building, they're not coming back
ever,
but not for the foreseeable. I think they've said 6 months.
Wow.
But we've seen a few of them trickling in, so I think it's a bit of a PR play. I'm not sure, Yeah, the building's busy today, and it seems like things are rolling now. Definitely in and around our office is 90%, back to 90% capacity.
I think there's definitely more cars about London as well. Like I came a few weeks, probably about a month ago, and it was definitely very quick to get in and out of. Whereas today, I think it reminds me a little bit. There is a bit more traffic, so it's a bit more like London. I think.
Yeah. I agree. But no, you're definitely right. Retail, sorry place at the moment on the high street is. It's odd, but again, through this transitional period, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of opportunities in the retail space as well.
Tell us a little bit about your day-to-day at CEEK Marketing.
I am the managing director of essentially a digital marketing agency. So we're split into 3 units essentially. So at the top of the triangle, if you like, is a consulting division, which is mainly essentially the senior members of staff that are very experienced across. We have this kind of omni-channel approach, as we call it, which is essentially we just don't leave any stones unturned. So multi-channel, and what we mean by that is the other area, the kind of next area of the business, is essentially what most people see a digital marketing agency would look like. So we've got our social media management teams, our search engine optimization teams, paid kind of advertising and acquisition, content and creative, website development, influencer marketing. Those teams are very much transact, I'm sure, in a very similar way to a lot of agencies. But that consulting piece of the business is very much what we lead with and the lens we look at everything through. And then some of our larger clients that are kind of national, multinationals, we also have a community team. So they're looking at things bit more specific to maybe the listeners of this podcast, kind of loyalty, referral, that kind of community piece, and customer service. So we partner with companies like Zendesk at the top end. So if you're buying something from Harrods, for example, you're speaking to Zendesk on their customer service. So their approach is very much omni-channel customer service, as is our marketing approach, is omni-channel marketing execution, we call it. We're sitting in the London office now. We've got an office down in Brighton. We're representing a lot of clients, obviously, in London. It's where we started the business. My hometown's Brighton. That's half the reason we've got an office down there. But we've got a good local client base there. But honestly, the beauty of digital, you can work with anyone, anywhere in the world. So we're very lucky in that respect. And definitely through this kind of COVID period, we've really expanded our international client base. It did scupper some plans to. We had quite a big presence in New York with no office, and we were due to open there, and we had a member of the team living there as well pre-COVID, and he actually hit the UK 2 days ago. Okay. So he kind of stayed there for the duration, and that was a pretty sorry existence for him. But yeah, so speaking to him daily, I mean, we will definitely be bullish on New York as a city, very resilient city. But right now it's a case of kind of focusing on our, I'd say domestic client base. And, you know, we put a lot of emphasis on the face-to-face interaction with clients. I do not believe you can do business in perpetuity via Zoom. I don't think it works. It's good to be sitting in front of you and chatting face-to-face today. It's good.
I think it was good when Emily, your colleague, said to me, do you want to do it in person? I thought, you know what? Yeah. Like, we've got so used to just saying, let's do it online. And I thought, no, let's do it. Like, let's actually do this. And while we did it, I booked a couple of more meetings as well, face-to-face. No one had a problem. And I just thought, I think it was needed to sort of get us out of this rut almost. Right?
100%. If you're following the guidance, let's go. You know, I think you're more likely to get ill from staying in too much than you are getting COVID.
Well, joking aside, especially mentally ill, like sitting at home all day long just isn't good. Like, you know, and I see a lot of rhetoric from companies saying we're going to be starting to work people more from home, and I'm thinking that's not good for them. You know, I know it sounds good at the moment, but the workplace is actually a social place as well.
100%. You know, I as a founder and as the effectively responsible for our team's health and safety and well-being, whether that's mental and physical, and to be honest, obviously there's legal restrictions as well that were in place, but the team were definitely the ones that wanted to come back, and that was nice, and I think to see them crave it. But interestingly, we've actually gone the other way. So when we started, before, we're just over 4 years old now, essentially we had a very large, what we used to call it, our distributed workforce. So, you know, people that weren't in-house, you know, and a gentleman called Reese, he actually heads our Brighton office. He's an expert in kind of the Google side, funnily enough. We were talking about Google a minute ago. And based out of our Brighton office. And, you know, he was one of those freelancers, essentially, one of this distributed workforce members back three and a half years ago. And now he's in-house heading up an office and a team. So we've got a bit of a weird model where we work with a freelancer but then in-source them if they're really good. Whereas I think most of the agencies we kind of hear when we're pitching, etc., it's the other way around. So they're saying, no, we're outsourcing everything, we're reducing our costs, meaning we're more effective. And, I mean, again, you can definitely do it that way. I've not got anything against remote work or the freelance or gig economy, as if you like. I think it's very useful, especially if you want to kind of lower your risk and taper your projects to budgets. But if the way we work as an agency, it's very, very much the majority of our clients are retained, as in monthly billing for a number of years, and we have very low attrition with our clients. That relationship and the nuances that are built up with account managers and consultants that are actually working with those businesses, you can't achieve that remotely. And you know, sometimes we forget in the agency world, especially in the digital world, why we exist. And with 90% of our clients, we are essentially there to drive revenue in the real world, you know? And even if you're buying something online, it's getting sent to you, and you're going to get it out of the packet and you're going to use it in the real world. And I think definitely when you start looking at the hospitality businesses we were discussing prior to starting, you know, they're real life experiences. They're not online experiences. And although we do have some clients that specialize in what would be known as a virtual experience, the reality is you can't lose the fact that these are real people in the real world, and it gets lost in the digital world.
So you mentioned that you generally have low attrition. How did that work with a lot of your hospitality customers when the pandemic sort of landed, the lockdown landed?
Great question. Yeah, essentially the day of the kind of Boris, everyone's sitting there, the announcement, it was shocking. And I mean, at the time, I'd say 20-ish% of the client base was London hospitality focused specifically. Now we're talking hotels, restaurants, casinos, suppliers to that industry, recruitment companies to that industry, multiple, so many affected parties. It was horrific. And I was sitting obviously in my flat and just getting calls from clients. And to be honest, it was very much, look, we're all in this together. We don't know what's happening. And we as an agency were just very, very flexible. And we were in a fortunate position to be able to say, hey, look, we're here for you. We'll do whatever we can to get through this. And different clients reacted in different ways. Within the first week or two after lockdown, I'd say 90% of the client base were very bullish, as in, how do we not everyone was looking to how to capitalise on the situation, but I'd say more, how do we come out of this stronger than we went in? And that's great. And I think, to be honest, we have a very our client base, they all have a very similar mentality, it seems, in business. We kind of gravitate towards clients that have a very similar ethos to ourselves, and you were explaining that you do the same in business, and I think that's really important. And it's kind of shown. I mean, the hospitality industry is so resilient. It's ridiculous. It's crazy. Had a breakfast meeting this morning with a client. The whole Christmas campaign is donating to 2 charities, Hospitality for Action, and a homeless charity that's local to them. They don't need to do it, but it's funny. And the sales and marketing director was just sitting there just saying, we just need to do our bit for the industry, and it's not about competition. It's actually brought the industry together even more. Yeah. In answer to the question, it was a big drop off almost immediately, especially in the hospitality industry, and then very quickly people were coming back up online, if you like, or coming back. So whether that was pivoting to delivery, going from supplying the trade to direct to consumer, whatever was happening, it started to happen quite quickly. Now I'd say 80% of clients are back trading. We do have a few that aren't. Some real institutions as well. We're working with Joe Allen restaurant in Covent Garden, absolute institution. They've not reopened yet. There's a number of the Savoy today that they've not reopened the American bar yet. Again, lack of tourism, it's such a destination, so I'm not sure when that will be back online. But I think everyone's muddling through, people are pulling together, and the general mood is extremely positive with the people that we meet. But I think we are very lucky, because I think there's a reason we work with those clients. I'm sure there's a lot of it's horrible to say it, but I think a lot of people did use it as an excuse to a degree of why not to trade, and the people that did actually found that they've acquired a new customer base during that time, in that initial period, but at the same time you can't discount how tough it was. We're literally looking at something that, no one's ever been through before, but it's an interesting time.
I feel that the lockdown period was just enough time to figure out what you needed to do in order to reopen safely. And I think we saw it a lot in our industry, that people just needed to sort of take that 3, 4, well, it's longer, 6 weeks, and figure out, okay, what is it I need to do? Is it this? Is it that? And I think I've seen it where some people have probably stayed closed a bit too long for whatever reason, mostly personal reasons. And I think that consumers have gone elsewhere.
100%. Yeah. And again, it's not that you can't win them back. However, it's going to cost you. Whether that's in cost of acquisition digitally, whether that's in discount, whether that's in time. And I just think, not being open means no revenue. Being open, you've got to be in it to win it, in my opinion. And it's been really inspiring. I've seen some, the entrepreneurs that have been born out of this period will have an effect on the economy in years to come. It's actually whether they've been forced to do it, or whether they've had the time and the mental bandwidth to maybe actually say, do you know what, I've got some time. I'm on furlough, or or we're not trading. What can we do?
I think one of the things, I was texting a friend of mine yesterday, and he used to work for a very big fish company. And he told me yesterday they let go of 1,000 people. And bear in mind, they probably employ 6,000 maybe. And he said, how's it been for you? And I said, it's been scary but exciting all at the same time. And I think for the first maybe 10 days before the government announced what they were doing for business, I just thought, I spent 10 years building up this business and it's probably going to hit the wall. Yeah. And then the Rishi Sunak announced everything, and I was actually, well, okay. My business manager was always calling me, asking if everything was okay, and I think great props in that way. Stuff that's who I'm with, and I think. Yeah, he was constantly on the phone twice a week, 3 times a week. I don't owe him anything. He wasn't ringing because he needed money.
Cool, you've got lucky there.
Oh, very lucky.
Yeah. I can tell you firsthand, mine is not the same.
Yeah,
but that's good.
And a friend of mine always said to me, like, if don't choose a bank because it's local, like choose it because the business manager's good. And I am lucky, there is no doubt, and that's why I'd never change now, because he's great. And if he leaves, I'll be dead upset. But then I guess there's someone else that will fill his shoes, I guess. But I just feel like once they announced everything, I just felt like, wow, here's what I want to do. And we had a list of everything that I've been trying to do for ages. Couldn't travel, so we just got everything done. And, and I think every business has had to re-look at themselves, reinvent them, pivot, whatever it is that you had to do. And there's no shame in staying alive. If it means you've got to pivot, then you've got to do it.
I agree. I agree.
What's the biggest change in, and let's just focus on your hospitality clients, what was the biggest change been for them? Like, how have they sort of come out of this and pivoted to get back open?
Yeah, so dependent on location, dependent on, so within the hospitality space, I think what is quite annoying about how hard it's been for the industry is the hospitality industry has led the way in, COVID related procedures and implementing things quicker than any other industry that I've seen, and I think it's just a shame when you've got people like yourself, they've worked on a business for so long and something can just take it away in an instant. But the main pivots really, luckily for us as a business, is the focus on digital has been almost forced. So prior to COVID, they're seeing people face to face every day, perhaps in their business, taking meetings. Digital became at one point the only way you could transact with your client base. So whether that was from a communications point of view, whether that was from a transactional point of view via an e-commerce website, for example, whether that was just keeping the community, their existing community updated. I mean, the people that I feel sorry for the most were new businesses that were due to launch, because a lot of preparation went in, and we had a number of kind of central London restaurants that were due to open during that period that couldn't. And they'd invested a lot of time in the planning, the strategy, the digital foundations, and physically weren't allowed to open their doors. So it was very difficult for them. But the main pivots were definitely, if someone was supplying the trade, kind of B2B, moving to a direct-to-consumer model. We've seen that a lot. I mentioned to you fishtoyourdoor.com. That was exactly that, born out of lockdown. Direct-to-consumer model, pivoted from a wholesale model. We had it in almost every category. We represent a lot of kind of food and beverage brands as well. So whether that's food, whether it's beer, gin, condiments, those types of things. And of course, when lockdown hit, there was a huge increase in online search for every product. Anything that had been bought online, honestly, what lockdown has kind of brought to the UK is, although we actually have the highest adoption rate of e-commerce globally, the UK is the leader. In e-commerce, it's the adoption rate is insane, but it's still, there's so, especially even my grandma, for example, she's now an online shopper. She wasn't before, and it's going to be the same for a lot of people, because regardless of age, there's, I know people in their 30s that just didn't buy online. It wasn't their thing. They preferred to go in and, touch the product. Now they had to, and they're actually, oh, this isn't so bad, actually. I'll save some time. I'll say, and again, it definitely has put the focus on, again, even more on the customer. So customer service has become even more paramount. That was actually one of the bigger challenges we had with hospitality businesses. F&B was actually, dealing with customer inquiries and customer service during that period, it became that community team that we mentioned, which is probably the newest division in the business. It's only about a year and a half we've had that. You know, we had clients that were really struggling with the level of communication and how to handle that. So we had to effectively put in systems to be able to help mitigate the NatWest. Emily and I, you just mentioned, have been sitting on hold to the NatWest team for about 2 hours today. Again, it's, you know, can you bring in live chat? How does email interact? Are you on social media utilising direct message? So main pivots definitely have been obviously the restaurants that weren't on delivery platforms moving into delivery. We worked very closely with Deliveroo throughout that period in London to get a lot of brands over onto Deliveroo, get their assets ready, the relevant photography. So it actually helped us onboard a lot of new clients during that time.
I suppose that's the difficult thing, isn't it? Like, if someone has a business and they've never really been digital aside from their EPOS system, I'd imagine all of a sudden they're just inundated with so much. Like, and you know, they're just restaurateurs, and that's fine. It's a great business to be in, hard work. But all of a sudden it's like, wow, I want to get on Deliveroo, or I want to have my own system, but I've got no assets, I've got no this, I've got
Where
no
do you
that.
start?
Yeah, you know, just a simple task of uploading a photo and it blows up everywhere, or it's too small and it's a bit crappy, and you think that's probably where you guys come in and say, actually, just leave it to us and we'll get you up and going.
100%. Yeah, I think that's the best relationships we have is when they're fully reliant on us from a digital perspective. You know, as I was saying to you before we started, we're posting thousands of times a month on behalf of clients. You know, we really do know what works, and let's let those restaurateurs, let's let those suppliers really focus on their product and their service and what they loved doing, rather than taking on the stress of something that is the unknown. Now, don't get me wrong, what we also see is actually people go, do you know what, this isn't so bad. You know, I can actually interact with more people quicker. I can display, you know, what's going on in the business in a very very visual or engaging way, receive feedback quicker, and leveraging these platforms to do that. So not all clients get overwhelmed by it, but there is an unlimited there's unlimited possibilities with the digital space. So it's kind of like helping people know, okay, where do you start, and how do you actually get revenue from? How do you take revenue from it?
So one of the things I always say to a lot of my customers and friends that are all like on social media is that they'll text me and say, this got 15,000 engagements or 15,000 views. Not so much clicks or likes, but engagement is likes mostly, isn't it? And I'll say, but how do you know if that translated to money? And I think a lot of the time you see social media, and I see it a little bit with TikTok, you know, I've got 100,000 views. Well, but they're in China or America. And how do you try and funnel that into a sales funnel, especially if you're a restaurant or a takeaway? So if you're a restaurant, it's reservations, but if you're a takeaway, I guess it's click and collect these days or delivery. But do you find that that's the hardest bridge to gap between social media and actually converting those likes to money?
Yeah, so you've got to look at the purpose of if you're looking at a social media account, an Instagram account, for example, you essentially have got to look for what is the purpose of why are you on social media, you know, and if it is to raise awareness of your brand, great, then you need what internally we would call impressions or reach, so eyeballs. You know, you need to, if it's not physically in front of anyone, and they don't know about you, they physically can't buy your product. So that's the first step. And actually, yeah, you know, if your engagement's really high, it's getting in front of a lot of people, that's the first step. I'd argue that's the easy bit, because that's what the platforms want. They want engaged users. So if you're putting out good content, you're going to get that. The next phase is, like you say, okay, how engaged are they? Is it they just saw it? Is it they interacted with the post? Is it they clicked through to the website? Is it they followed you? Did they share it? Did they save it? You know, did they screenshot it and send it to a friend, which is obviously very difficult to track. But essentially, if you're looking for short-term wins, you know, you're not going to get that through through organic posting. You know, it is a slightly longer term view. However, in answer to your question, of all of the people that have seen a brand, what we have the facility to do, which can be a bit scary to some people, is if they've looked at your content before or they've been on your website before, but they haven't actually booked with you, they haven't actually booked in for a reservation, or they've actually ordered something, we then have the ability to show that individual ads. So we can show them an advert on their platform that they're on, whether that's Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, Twitter, LinkedIn, Google, wherever. And essentially, we can show them, put them through what we call a funnel, where it starts with awareness, but then we actually keep putting it in front of them, essentially until they buy. It's obviously a lot more nuanced, but essentially that is what we're doing. So we're looking at the people that are already aware of you, and ideally giving them value in the most indirect manner as possible, or something that's a bit more aspirational, or something that's just engaging and keeping them front of mind as a brand, essentially. But it's all in the data. So if people aren't seeing your content, it's going to be very difficult for you to drive sales through it. If people are seeing your content and you're still not doing sales, you've effectively got a missing piece of the funnel, that conversion piece. So we very much, the approach we take is very much, okay, what is the quality of the foundations of the platforms that you're using? You know, if someone goes onto that platform, are they going to trust you by default just by that initial feeling? If no, okay, well, what can you do about it? If yes, okay, great. What's the quality of the content you're putting in front of someone? We always say it. I mean, social media we were born as a social media agency. We literally, thanks to social media, we are who we are today. But it's bloody overrated. Like, it is, you know. If the reality is, for a restaurant, they're looking to drive bookings, covers. You know, what's the average spend per head? How are you on a Monday? How are you on your Saturday brunch? Now, social media is a tool, one channel, one tool of a very wide mix of reasons why people will come to a restaurant. When leveraged well, it can be a very powerful tool. But I think you know, with social media advertising specifically, which is definitely seen as the kind of dark arts, if you like, and people are really really don't understand how it works, think it's really costly. Essentially, if you're showing an advert of any kind to someone on TV, billboard, social media, you're interrupting someone's day with something they may or may not want, that may or may not be relevant. The beauty of social media is you can make sure it's relevant. Because of the data that's available, you can show the ads to people that are already interested in that subject or that type of food. You know, so for example, if we were doing the marketing for a roast dinner and it was a steak, we're obviously going to exclude vegan customers. You know, obviously that you can keep drilling that down. You can go into age, demographics, locations, interests, whether they're engaged online shoppers. There's a lot of data there. That may change because, you know, companies like Apple are really clamping down on the use of data. But I had a conversation about it the other day with a journalist, and do you want irrelevant ads then? So if you don't want to volunteer that data of what you're interested in, you're just going to get hit with ads that aren't relevant. And trust me, you'll be turning those privacy settings back to actually show me relevant ads, because either way you're going to get them. That's how the biggest platforms in the world that have the most kind of hours per day of eyeballs, that's how they monetize, through advertising. So yeah, it's an interesting one.
I suppose the thing to know is that I think one of the things I dislike the most about the whole process isn't the ads, it's the tracking. So like I remember once a while ago I looked at a jet wash on B&Q, and literally, like you said, it was everywhere I went, every website I went on afterwards, it was that little box, it was there, like jet wash. I'd already bought it from somewhere else, but it was just constantly in front of me because that tracker didn't know that I'd bought it.
Yeah.
I guess probably nowadays they do know, because if you bought it from Amazon, it would know that the sale completed. But I think in the real world, my analogy was, imagine walking into B&Q and then not buying it, and then every shop you went to afterwards, someone was walking around you with a billboard saying, this is what you were looking at.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
You have to be really careful. So, especially if you're working with a luxury brand, for example, I mean, any brand should be considerate of it, but you will cannibalize. You know, B&Q could lose you as a lifetime customer because they got on your nerves.
A bit aggressive with that.
100%. So there's a few metrics that we really do keep an eye on when you're looking at paid targeting in the Facebook platform, if you like, Facebook and Instagram, is frequency. Yeah. So how often is a customer seeing your ad? It's got to feel indirect. And don't get me wrong, I've had it both ways. Yeah, of course. And you just get absolutely sick of seeing an ad and you end up blocking that company or whatever. But also they are useful. Yeah. You know, you're you know, I'm fascinated by the way sometimes obviously you know your own kind of browsing history and how they relate that to you. I mean, the most powerful tool right now for hospitality and e-commerce brands on the ads front is what's called effectively a lookalike customer. So if you buy fish from fishtoyourdoor.com, you may also like batter from X, you know, or a condiment, and it's actually you don't have to be anything to do with that original company. It's just the platform knows you're buying fish online, you're an engaged shopper that's buying fish. Well, maybe you might want this sauce with it, you know, and essentially the platform's goals are to be as relevant as possible, because then you're going to stay on the platform longer. You know, I think Google's mission statement is like, you know, to organise the world's information. So half of what we do, you know, from especially the SEO teams, the guys that are making changes and on the website to get people ranking in Google for free rather than having to pay for it, is just tell Google what you do very clearly. And yes, that can be done in a very clever way, but and Google will show you to your customer base that is looking for your product. And although social media is potentially interrupting someone's day with something they may or may not be interested in, Google, on the other hand, is typically giving someone the answer they're looking for. So in terms of that funnel, just circling back to what we originally, if you're looking for something from B&Q on Google and you're in the market for a jet washer and you don't buy, maybe then you could be tempted on social media. So what's really interesting is how these platforms, although they're nothing to do with each other, if you set that marketing mix in, you know, those channels up in the right way, they will actually work really well together. Yeah. And typically Google for a restaurant is a hot lead. Restaurants near me, best steak in Marylebone. Yeah.
Is SEO as important as it always was? Because for those that don't know about search engine optimization, because I read an article recently and it said that it probably won't be as big as what everyone thinks it is, because everyone's going to be moving to like Alexas and Siris and all of that, or is it still just going to be as relevant as ever?
So more relevant than ever. So voice search works in exactly the same way as text search, image search, video search. So essentially, it's a really good question. It affects everything, and essentially, search engine optimization or SEO as an industry it's just been absolutely, the level of trust in that area of our industry is just so low. We pride ourselves as being the kind of number one, especially in the hospitality market. You know, one of the biggest celebrations we've had in the last 4 years wasn't our biggest month for revenue, signing a big client. It was hitting top of Google nationally for hospitality marketing agency. So we're working hard on our own SEO. But essentially, if you are asking a smart hub type device, a Siri, an Alexa, Google Home, whatever you're asking, it's checking a search engine for that answer. That's where the answers are. That's where there's the, you know, even whether it's searching it and saying, okay, Wikipedia's got that answer, or whether it's a website's got that answer, you know. So most searches in Google, which is 96% of the traffic in the UK, most of the searches don't result in a click. They get the answer, the user gets the answer to the question on Google right there, whether it's weather, whether it's, information, opening times, all this sort of thing. So for hospitality businesses, especially restaurants and physical businesses, the most important social media platform, funnily enough, is Google My Business. So if any of the listeners haven't got it, download the app.
And if that's wrong, or at least the information's not correct, people get pretty peed off about that. Because I know I do. Like if I see that it says it's open on Google and they're not, I get pretty annoyed about it.
100%. And it's funny because Google prioritizes correct information, so they will know whether something's a broken link or So Google My Business is the most underrated social media platform in the world. You actually could grow a restaurant business with nothing else. You could literally have no other social media, not even have a website. It's ideal too. However, Google My Business is the most important thing for a physical hospitality business.
So do you think everyone should have a website, or can they just have a social media page?
Everyone should have a website if you want to grow your business. If you want to set up a business and you want to transact, it isn't necessary. I would avoid if you're going to do it properly. We have so many clients that are on the Wix platform, Squarespace, GoDaddy, Web Builder, all these sort of things. These platforms are drag and drop. They're not built for Google to crawl easily and find information. You're better off with a simple WordPress website or a Shopify website if you're doing online transactions. Mainly because they're built in a way where Google can crawl them very easily, so it can read the code, it can read the words. But you've just got to remember that Google is blind. It doesn't see images. You need to tell it what it is. So be quite literal. And the reality is that's what the customer wants. They want to know what is a product, what's in the product, how do I get the product, how much is the product, how long is it going to take, just literal information. And I think it is difficult with search engine optimization as a whole and websites. It's very difficult that brand versus acquisition, but 100% you need a website. It's the first, as if you're a credible business, you have a website.
Yeah. I think one of the things I always say to people is that if you've got a website, it's your domain. You own it. If Facebook changed the algorithm, you own your website. If Twitter changed something, you've got your website. It's almost like having the roof over your head, isn't it? I think it's your house online, isn't it?
Online real estate.
Shop front online.
Yeah, you're so right. And it's got value in itself. Trust me, it will go up in value.
Again, maybe it's not the right terminology, but it's a bit like a hub and spoke. The website is your hub and everything else, social media is your spokes. And I think that's where you reach out, but you need a place, a destination for everyone to go to.
Yeah.
And I think that's the same if you've got, a street food, a little business on the road, if you've got a little chip shop, if you've got, a bigger chip shop, a bigger restaurant, a pub chain. I think it just shows I'm legit because, you've invested in a website, if that makes sense.
100%. And, it's where people go to view your menu. It's where people go to inquire. It's where people go to see you're open. All of the validation and the trust comes from the website, rightly or wrongly. It's 100% a worthwhile investment and a lot lower cost, I think, than people think.
Yeah.
I've never seen a business. We've never had a business that hasn't seen an ROI within half a year of having a website.
I'm not being funny. You don't have to always get an agency. If you've got the budget, do so. But if you don't, you could probably do a WordPress site for what? A free one with a WordPress thing at the end, or even if it costs you £100 for everything to bundle in. A bit of time, nice photography, it's not going to hurt, is it?
100%. I mean, and don't get me wrong. If the budget's not there to spend a few thousand on a really beautiful SEO optimized website, don't get me wrong. Do go down the page builder route. Get a Wix site, a Squarespace site for £40 a month, £30 a month. 100%. It's definitely better than nothing. But what I would argue is, do take the time to like you said, get the good content for the site. Most websites actually, the way they look, feel, and the kind of copy on the site content is king. You know, so if you're not going to bother with the content, don't bother. It's kind of like having an amazing window with nothing in it. You know, there's no point. So
you need to dress the window.
100%.
And I think it's a fair point. I was going to touch on it in a minute, but every business owner now has to also be a content creator. You know, I'm taking photos or writing articles or doing podcasts and doing the odd video, and it's not just here's what I've got, do you want to buy it? Now it's everything. It's, you know, like you said earlier, it's omni-channel. You've got to have content for each channel. It's
overwhelming and it's tough, and I can fully appreciate a small business starting up. There's a lot to do, but if you're investing good content and you're cascading it through the different channels where your customer or you think your customer is, try not to make any assumptions. Put it everywhere, and then see what works, and cut away the stuff that isn't.
I was talking to a friend earlier about setting up a new business, and he said, "What should I do? Should I get the product right and start selling it first, or get the website and all the content right and then start selling it once all that's done?" And I was like, "I'd spend 6 months in the background building up the website, building up the content, building up everything, so then when the product is ready, people come to the website and think, oh, it's established. Oh, it looks nice. Oh, I trust it." You know, and like a friend of mine, he's always saying, "Oh, I haven't done my website yet. Well, you click on a page and it has the lorem ipsum, and I'll say, "Well, I don't feel like putting my credit card details in there now because the website's not quite finished." And you know, it's a bit like, would you go shopping for a new coat in a shop that's been refurbished, or there's a ladder through? I don't know. I think the same thing that applies in physical space applies online. I think you've got to have your stall ready.
I agree.
You know, and I think one of the things you mentioned on the phone, which I thought was quite interesting, was you said every business needs to be on every social media platform. And I thought to myself, wow, that's really overwhelming. Like, I'm on as many as I can be. I just recently went through the process of consolidating loads of social media. I'm still on most of them, but I've consolidated accounts. But it just sounds like a lot of work. But what's the rationale behind that?
So is it really necessary is the question?
Yeah.
You don't have to be.
Yeah.
But if I owned that small chip shop, big restaurant, pub chain, I would. Mainly because you hit the nail on the head a minute ago. You don't want to be reliant on a single channel. If you put all your eggs in the Facebook basket, you're going to get stung. You know, if you put all of your eggs in any basket, what happens if the account gets deleted? You know,
and it could.
It could.
Yeah, we don't own that space.
You don't. Yeah. They own it. They own every picture you put on there. So it's more. There's risk mitigation. Number one. So having what we call an omni-channel approach, is risk mitigation. You're not reliant on any one channel, especially if you're scaling your business. You know, the cost of acquisition per channel fluctuates almost daily. So effectively, you're day trading attention. You essentially want to mitigate your risk in terms of the ownership and kind of, you know, is that account actually physically available to see, maybe from deletion, fraud, hacking, whatever. It's all pretty rare, but again, why not protect your business? Second, from cost of acquisition, and then third, why should we be so arrogant as to know where our customer prefers to look for their products? How do we know that when someone's planning a trip to Bath to go to a restaurant that they're not looking at the images on Pinterest, which is a visual search engine? How do we know they're not looking on Google Images? So make sure our images on our website are optimized for Google Images. How do we know that they're not asking for recommendations on Facebook? So someone can maybe tag in, you know, how do we know that? And what we usually find, I get it, there's downfalls to certain platforms as well. You know, people have got so many misconceptions about what platforms are used for, and Twitter's a great example. People kind of now are saying, you know, isn't that just a place where people go to complain or you know, or bash a politician? Yeah, and it can be if it's not utilised in the right way, you can misuse any platform. But in my opinion, you should have as much exposure as possible and really double down on the areas that are getting you the most return on investment. It is difficult to do that because, again, you've got analytics and data from every platform individually. Content performs different on each platform. I mean, LinkedIn is just a the holy grail of organic reach. You know, you can post a video on there and you can get in front of thousands of people with no spend. I have to have a check. I posted on there for the first time in a while today, see how my picture did. But honestly, it is a big task, and you've got to be careful of your time, because the reality is, it doesn't matter how many people see your business. It doesn't matter how many people go on your website and book. If you're serving crappy food, they're not coming back, and you're going to leave a bad review.
So assuming you're doing everything right, food-wise, in the physical space, you're doing everything as right as can be, would you say you should treat social media, especially from a business point of view, in a very narcissistic way? Check all the metrics, make sure they work, look at, right, I put this photo up, constantly A/B testing, but even if you're not formally doing an A/B test, but even if it's just, I did this photo here and we got 3,000 likes and I put it there and only got 1. Would you be constantly reviewing this all the time?
Although my view on that omni-channel approach is relatively rigid, I'd actually go as far as saying, just do it. Just if in doubt, get it out. If it doesn't conflict with your brand, especially if you're a small business, the best thing for you to do is be present on those platforms. I mean, yes, when we start talking about our larger companies, people with bigger audiences, maybe 50, 100,000, millions of followers, yes, we're a lot more data driven. However, the reality is, don't be scared to post. And the reality is, you'll get the feeling will be enough over time. I mean, people get really hung up on Vanity Metrics. You mentioned a lot of them. It is irrelevant how many people like your photos. It's irrelevant. It's a metric. The reality is sales. And what we do see, though, is people that post every day on Instagram, for example, which isn't optimal. You shouldn't be posting that often at the moment with the way the algorithm is, and then they come to us and say, no, we've done social media, we've done it, we've been there, done that, it doesn't work. So okay, fine,
I get the feeling.
Been there, done that, doesn't work for my industry, no one buys from social media. We've always got multiple use cases of where it has worked. There's not many industries we've not had touch points. And again, maybe it wasn't used in the right way. Maybe the content wasn't right. Maybe it did need some paid budget behind it. Maybe there's so many ways to skin it.
I think just because, look, if you date a girl or a girl dates a boy and the first date isn't great, you don't walk out there and say, never again, never again. You don't do that. You sort of figure out what went wrong and you go date another girl or a boy, and you do it again. But I think,
I love that analogy. I've got to use that.
It's not mine. I've heard it somewhere, and it's so true. It's just a wide analogy for try again. And I think maybe you just didn't find your thing. And I know someone who's probably 50 years old who is amazing at Twitter, for a business. They're constantly interactive with people, and their personality has really gelled with Twitter. And the same person has now got on Instagram. And it's a bit tougher. You can see that the psychology is not the same, but on Twitter, still a great job, and I think you've just got to find what probably works for you.
100%, and what you enjoy.
Yeah.
If you don't enjoy it, don't do it.
Yeah, it makes sense.
If you're a small business startup, look for someone locally, someone in the school that's or in the college that's studying business and marketing, and the reality is, this Gen Z audience, which is going to be the biggest spending power anyway, very shortly, they grew up with it. They're born with it. It's literally innate. They know what works because they're on it all day.
We mentioned earlier that we talked about when I did a YouTube channel, and every time I saw the camera in my face, even me, I was just, what did you call it? Red light syndrome or something.
That's it.
Yeah. And I was on my phone the other day, and my son's 6, and I'm just going through the videos, and he's done videos. No fear, none whatsoever, and he just sees it as it's normal.
100%.
And
he's grown up with FaceTime. He's grown up Snapchat. Yeah, 100%.
And I wonder if everything is just moving that way. It's just going to be,
You'll find probably, again, it's shifted again during lockdown because everyone was forced on Zoom, so you are speaking at a camera. Again, it's not for everyone, and whether you're taking a picture of your product, whether it's you speaking about your product, whether it's someone else speaking about your product. Influencer marketing is a massive kind of, a lot of misconceptions around that area of the marketing world. But essentially they're content creators that have a community or a following because of the quality of their content.
It's only anecdotal, but I met an influencer once. And that's such a broad word, isn't it? Influencer. But
tell me who they are. So
I can't remember her name now, to be honest.
So,
that shows a lot, doesn't it?
Also a big following.
I think probably about 800,000 Instagram followers. Is that good? Or is that an over-exaggeration?
No,
I can't remember now exactly how many, but it was a lot.
Yeah.
And I remember just quickly looking at her. And I met her, and I felt in person, and not disparaging her at all, she was very shy, very quiet, almost probably on the spectrum to some degree. And yet I was looking at her while we were talking on her Instagram, where she was showing me, it's like a different person.
Yeah.
Like, it's almost like she blossomed on Instagram. Like, she's completely different. And then you put the phone away and you can't believe they're the same people.
Yeah.
You know? But obviously, I guess that's like actors, you know. Daniel Craig is not James Bond. And I guess it's just getting used to
Very
that.
typical, yeah.
You know, and she was lovely, don't get me wrong, but it was just like, don't mess around when she was taking a photo, seriously. Like, when she was taking a photo of herself doing something, like, it was like religious. Like, if you so much as got us in the way, I think she was going to batter me, like, literally. But it just...
In a bad way.
Yeah. But I think that, you know, you have an agency that sort of deals with influencers as well, don't you? And I was thinking about this the other day, and I was thinking, a friend of mine's opened a restaurant in Nantwich, and he gets emails almost all the time saying, I'm an influencer, can I come and eat at your restaurant?
Yeah.
Now, how do you deal with that? Because he gets really annoyed with that.
Yeah, so obviously there is huge value in influencer marketing done right. You know, the biggest brands in the world leverage it because it can be the most cost-effective acquisition funnel, if you like, and it's been around forever. So, you know, the word influencer has been coined and related to platforms like YouTube and Instagram. However, you know, influencers have been around forever, whether it was royalty, whether it was, you know, footballers, TV, you know, whatever. But specifically for a restaurant, obviously that's very common. Through direct messaging, through emails, I'm an influencer. Okay, what's the value of the influencer? Who are they influencing? You know,
what's the digits? What's the number where it becomes person is an influencer, or this person's popular on social media? Where's the crossover, would you say?
One follower. You know, what happens if that, you know, 10 followers, 100 followers?
So if you can influence those 10 followers, you're an influencer.
I mean, essentially, what are you selling? So, you know, where are you trying to take revenue? If you're selling, you know, pens, for example, what happens if you get someone that posts about that pen that has the 10 biggest wholesale buyers on the planet? Maybe. Yeah. You know,
so it's not about volume then.
Definitely not.
Okay.
Quality over quantity, 100%. Now, don't get me wrong. If someone's got more followers, there's a higher chance relevant people are going to be following them. Typically, but again, it's all the values in niches, as it is in everything. You know, so definitely in the hospitality business, definitely for your friend who you know, he's not got 10 sites, he's got this one site in one, you know, okay, locally, are there people that all of these terms, you know, micro influencers, macro, it's irrelevant. Is that person relevant to your business? Would you want them as a customer? And if they've also got a following, they also create good content. Honestly, all of the value, just to finish where I feel the value is for hospitality businesses, look at the content. If that content is beautiful,
engaging,
you can reuse it. And, you know, the reason they've got the following is probably because of the value of the content.
Yeah.
And then if they've got an audience that's relevant, that's a secondary benefit.
So my friend's attitude was, and I'm not slating him because it was just his attitude. He goes, I've got more followers than them. But what you're saying is, if there are 100 followers that are all, you know, religiously interested in what these people are writing, those 100 people may turn up at his restaurant.
100%.
For argument's sake.
100%.
Yeah. Whereas it's really clear that it's just not volume, it's quality.
100%. 100%.
So digressing slightly, quick question. Facebook boost versus Facebook what is it? What do they call it now? Facebook Business, Facebook Ads. What do they call it now?
Yeah, Business Manager.
Yeah, Manager. That's it now. Because they keep changing it, don't they?
Yeah.
What do you prefer?
So, again, if you're working with an agency or you have the ability to work with experts, that boost button will never get touched. What it's essentially doing is putting the post in front of as many people as quickly as possible. Don't get me wrong. If you're a small business, you've got an Instagram account, and you're living in, you've got a pub in a village, you can literally target people that are on Instagram in that village that are interested in X, Y, and Z via that boost button. The difference is you don't get the granular. You can't exclude people that aren't relevant. There's so much you can't do with that button. So it is for typically hobbyists, typically. But don't get me wrong, you can do sales through it.
Yeah.
I just think it's, again, what's the value of £1 being spent there versus elsewhere? And that's where that kind of consultative approach is there. But so I wouldn't recommend it.
The cost per acquisition is lower in the other side, in Facebook Advert Manager, whatever it's called now, isn't it? Or
Not necessarily. I mean, one thing if you're going to use that boost button to get a bit more traction behind your posts, best way to do it is if there's something that I call it the +1 effect. It's kind of like, okay, we're doing a competition, for example, for win a free meal, tag a friend, blah blah. Works really well. All you've got to do is get that post in front of more people, and then effectively you're paying to get it in front of them, but then they're also tagging one more person in. So it's that kind of, we call it that +1 value. So it's like, okay, you're getting a little bit more. There's no difference. It's if you boost a post, it would effectively show up in the business manager, in your Facebook Business Manager. But honestly, what you can do there is would blow your mind. It's insane.
I use it, and sometimes you click on one thing and you're like, oh god. And then you open another page and you just literally search in the definition of something like lookalikes and so on and so on.
It's crazy.
And you're just like, where'd you start?
No, it's crazy.
Yeah, so
I mean, we've got people that have been on that platform since it was invented every day, and it's confusing for them.
It changes so fast, though, doesn't it? It's not like it's a static thing, and I suppose now it's given me, the layperson, the tools that advertisers have had for years. So you do, I've not done an advertising or marketing course, and now I'm constantly reading up on it, whether it's listening to podcasts or reading articles about it. The company that I use for my social media managing, I'm constantly on their website, just going through all the definitions and.
That's the terminology is ridiculous as well. That it's one of the things that we're trying to kind of train our team all the time is stop using our internal or marketing. How many people have just break it down into business relevant commercial terms. I
think if Facebook actually changed the wording to just layperson terms, like jargon free, I think they'd make so much more money.
Yeah, 100%. The problem is with the platforms like that is they prioritise the biggest ad spend, companies with the biggest ad spend, hence the complexity.
Coca-Cola, Pepsi,
exactly,
and they've all got big marketing teams.
Right.
Yeah, and
it's not fair on the startup, but there is a lot of information out there. It is tough. I mean, just you mentioned test. Definitely, it is worth testing. If you're not trying it, you can't get the upside.
A formal A/B test, or just constantly monitoring what you're doing.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't think, because again, the problem is, I'm not going to kind of go into the definitions, but an A/B test. If you tell a scientist, you're testing two people. Yeah. There's so many variables. It's the same with social.
You've just got more information that you don't understand.
Yeah.
Whereas if you just stick to the basics, likes, retweets, shares, whatever it is, what platform you're on, I suppose you just get the right hunch, the right feeling for it. If you see that there's lots of numbers at the bottom, lots of hearts, and hopefully not a lot of dislikes. But then again, I suppose in some ways, if there's dislikes, again, that's a good thing in the long run, I guess, is it? Because I guess your adverts would stop showing to those people if they've clicked dislike.
I think for hospitality, the bane of a lot of, especially kind of owner operators, is actually the negative review. That's usually what we get the most calls about. It's taking a bit of a hammering on our reviews, or can we get rid of this review? Or
I don't blame them.
No, of course it is difficult, and especially if you've got an unfair.
Well, the problem is those negative reviews generally come from. Don't get me wrong, there is a percentage of them that are legit. Everyone has a crap day at work. The other problem is that sometimes customers have a crap day at work, or they have a crap day at home, and they go to a restaurant and someone didn't smile properly or efficiently, or someone didn't run around after them as much as what they'd like, and all of a sudden they're ranting on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram.
Yeah.
So I can see it from the shop owner or the restaurant owner's point of view as well, to be honest. But what is it? Let's look at crisis management. It sort of flows off the back of that. No one really complains. I guess they do, but not as much. But no one really complains formally anymore. No one rings the place of business and says, "Hey, John, I came in the other day. It was a bit this," or email, or private message. Now, everyone takes to the open web, whether it's Facebook, Instagram. Wherever there's something good being said, there's something negative being said as well. What's your strategy there? Would you say deal with it, delete it, hide it, or just don't deal with it?
Yeah, again, complex situation, really dependent on the business, the severity. If it is a recurring issue, it's different maybe to a one-off, and there's a lot of variables. I mean, if someone is really just rude, on a review, or swearing, or saying something that's derogatory in any way, and it breaks the policy of that platform, it should be get it removed. It shouldn't be there. However, definitely don't hide from it. Don't feel bullied as a business that you need to make any change. If you stay true to your brand and you do care about your customers, you will always win eventually online.
It's a bit of a tricky time because everyone wants to get on board with all these social justice support, let's say. I don't know what the exact terminology is. But not long ago, I think it was maybe last year, everyone changed their profile picture for a black background. I can't remember what it was for. It might have been Black Lives Matter, I'm not sure. Because there's always something, there's so much now. And if you didn't do it, you felt coerced.
Yeah.
And at the moment, there's the feed a school kid thing.
Yeah.
And that's become a movement. And some restaurants and takeaways that I know didn't do anything because I think, especially in Wales, it's been covered anyway. And they've had phone calls saying, "Why aren't you doing anything? What a disgrace, you blah, blah, blah," like shouting at them, emails, messages, negative reviews, because they've not aligned with the social movement. How do you deal with those sort of pylons?
Yes, it is tough. I mean, because I can see it from both ways. We've got a lot of our clients are participating in specifically in that campaign. Some aren't, because people have got maybe their own issues, and their business is about to shut down if they're not fully focused there. So don't get me wrong, if people are in a position to help or use their community to spread any cause that they care about, that it's their prerogative to do so. In terms of feeling pressured, no one should feel pressured to do anything ever. It is definitely, especially in the hospitality trade, a very... I've said this, I had 2 meetings today with 3 meetings, 2 of which were with 5-star luxury hotels. One was a I don't know what you want to call it, very, very busy central London restaurant. I said it in each of the meetings to these the boards. Stop dictating your strategy. That essentially they had like an on-trade strategy. Stop basing your strategy on what everyone else is doing. They're doing it, shouldn't we be doing it? They're not doing it, should we do it? Think about your customer. Who's paying the bills? Who are you trying to attract? What do they want to see? Do they want to see behind the scenes? Do they want to see more the personality of the team? Do they want to see the product they're buying? And I just feel like the hospitality trade, although I love the way it's come together, hospitality as a sector, they're posting for each other. See drinks brands, on trade. It's not about that's not. Who's the end? Who's drinking it? you know. And don't get me wrong, the B2B play, I mean, you'll know it better than anyone. You know, the B2B marketing spectrum and B2C marketing spectrum are different. But think about whoever the end user is and do it for them, not your competitors. I'm not saying don't keep an eye on it, because you might get inspired. Yeah. You said about being, you know, having a lot of respect, you know, for other people in your industry. That's great. Respect the content. You know, maybe it'll inspire you. Maybe see what they do and go, oh, actually, that isn't what we would do. So you know, but the reality is, you've got to do it for the end consumer. Whether that is a buyer, whether that is someone that's buying your product online, whether it's someone that's coming down to sit for a plate of food, you know, do it for them, and then they will effectively join the community.
I was chatting to an author who wrote a book about Gen Z. And she was saying, and I asked something similar, paraphrasing along the lines of, you know, should you celebrate Black History this or BLM or what? There's so many, you know, now there's one every month now, isn't there? So, and they're all, you know, whether it's LGBT or whatever. And she says you shouldn't promote anything unless you're truly behind it, because you will quickly get called out on it, you know, because that's all it takes. It's just one person to say, you know, post something, and if your answer's slightly off, they're going to know that you were doing it just because you looked at a calendar and this is what people are celebrating today. And it does feel like that social media is very reactionary like that. If one person does something, everyone quickly falls into line. And one thing, and I don't know what your thoughts are here, but one thing my dad always said when I first started in business is there's a couple of things you never talk about in retail. He goes, God and politics. Never talk about God and politics. Whereas now, like, social media has removed all those obstacles. Everyone talks about God. Everyone talks about obstacles. Politics. They feel like obstacles. And I think, like, you can, you know, if we look at this, the Feed a Child campaign thing over half term, one of my customers didn't do it, and some customers messaged him saying he should be disgraced. Someone did do it, another customer. Someone messaged him saying, oh, when are you going to stop pandering to, what was it, virtue signalers or something? And it's almost like you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. And I just said, well, I wouldn't have done anything. If you're not feeling it and you're only doing it because the movement led you that way, I wouldn't do it. And I think it just makes me think, now more than ever, you've got to be able to stand proudly and say, this is what we believe in, and that's why we're doing what we do.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely. I agree. If you believe in it, do it. 100%. I mean, I found these movements you're kind of you know, discussing there. It's been great for me because I have actually been educated in areas about, you know, I wasn't aware that it was even an issue. I don't really I'm not really an avid news reader, if I'm honest. I just feel like the big news will come to me. I do focus more on kind of the business news and that type of thing, but I think they can be really useful. And some of the importance of some of the information that's been shared rapidly has been really good, I feel. But at the same time, it can go the other way. And I think if it's affecting your business, positive or negative, it does need to be considered. And it's a shame. I just think if you believe in something, you should be able to do it. If you need to focus on other things, you should be able to do it. I just don't think you should let any audience dictate what you believe in or what you feel like you should take action in. And I think social media, it is effectively, it's not regulated. It's not, it is an open forum. And I think the positives by far outweigh the negatives on every platform. It's just, you've just got to be careful with, especially with politics and kind of fake news is very dangerous. And I think coronavirus it's actually upped the platform's game, because there's so much misinformation. There's so many businesses, like you say, that are now closed, that or needs of people that really, they really do need information. It's forced the platforms to be smarter about where it gets that information from.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult. It's the reason we're in business. It's difficult.
One thing I feel is really interesting is how like, if we look at Facebook for a moment, the marketing is now being used. The same marketing techniques are being used by politicians than they are retail. If you look at Cambridge Analytica, it's just so much information that's being mined off people. And I think I always say to people about like personal use on Facebook, you're not the customer, you're the product. And I always say that to people, like, because I'm not personally a Stelios. I'm not a customer of Facebook. Ceres is, but I'm not personally. Personally, I'm a product. I'm what they mine to give to people, like the marketers. And there's nothing wrong with that if you know what you're putting yourself in for. And ultimately, they're not forcing you to share these things. I think that as much as I'm probably somewhere in the middle when it comes to social media, I don't blame them for everything. But I also blame the people. Like, if you decide that you want to go to KFC and snap a photo, share yourself, tag yourself in, retweet it, well, don't blame Twitter or Facebook or Instagram. Like, so I think...
Exactly. You can just delete the app. If you don't like it, delete it.
Well, and I think they would say, well, we're addicted to it. Well, delete it and go cold turkey then. And I think... but I feel that there is, like you say, there is more good than bad. For example, when there's an earthquake, Facebook will alert you and say there was an earthquake somewhere.
Special.
Or that your friends are okay because they checked into Facebook, right? You just logged in. So there is sort of benefits to social media, and there's obviously downsides as well.
Yeah, the reality is, there's never been a lower cost way to get in front of your consumer. Yeah. Like, it's free, it can be free.
Remember advertising to newspapers, pre-2008 maybe? Even a local newspaper would have been £1,000 give or take. I'm from a town called Nuneaton, like 70,000 population. Not everyone gets the paper because obviously they're at school or they're elderly. Well, actually, the elderly mostly always get it. But then it was £1,000 for one advert. And you think, and you can't just put one advert in, it doesn't work, So you put 4 in once a week.
Yeah.
And you think, now, what could $4,000 get you as a local business on Facebook?
Sure. Yeah, amazing. For a £4,000 full funnel advertising campaign, yeah, you can get in front of a fair few Nuneatons, and
I reckon you could run for mayor.
Yeah, 100%. I think the amount, the low cost of entry, the size of the audience, both of those factors are why it's the biggest opportunity, definitely in my lifetime, to advertise cheaply, quickly, and yeah, again, I just really do feel sorry for people that do have a fear of it for whatever reason, whether that's from a business point, mainly for their business. I just don't want to post the wrong thing. I don't want to do the wrong thing. Don't be scared of it. Get involved with it, and speak to people that you said speaking to your friends. He's got a lot of followers. He runs a restaurant. Like, great. How does he feel about it? Speak, but don't rely on that one YouTube video or that one opinion. Make sure you're making your own. And I don't think you can really go wrong if personally, if you stay true to what you believe in. And I was listening to a podcast the other day, and they were saying, this guy, he's like, I was putting out my music and no one was listening to it, and then 100 people started listening to it, then 1,000, and these people all around the globe, and I was very different. He was saying he was very different at the time, and quite niche. And then that one right person watched it, and he's now in the top 10 every other week. And it's kind of it's distribution. It's unbelievable.
I think you're right. You've just got to take your hat off and look at social media as a different thing. Instead of looking at it as it absorbs all my life, you just got to see it as a distribution model. Mm-hmm. It's getting you in front of different eyes, or ears. If you're a musician, it is. If it's a YouTube video, it's eyes. And I find it incredible. I follow one guy on Twitter, on YouTube, and he went from 100,000 followers to like 4 million. And you think, how did he do that? Well, no, maybe it's 2 million. I think David McKinnon.
And puts out great content, I presume.
Oh yeah, it's awesome. Like, I watch it and I'm like, whoa. Like, he's amazing. He's a videographer for a start, so that helps when you're on YouTube. But I think one of the mistakes a lot of people make, especially if you're on YouTube, I think you can get away with it if it's an Instagram story or whatever, like that it's not great quality. Like, not everyone's going to go get a Sony A7R or whatever. You know what I mean? So, but if it's YouTube, I think the barrier to entry now, quality wise, is so high. Like, if you're just knocking about with your old Samsung phone or your old Apple phone, I think people are going to start thinking, it was all right, like, but I want to see something a bit better. But this guy, Peter McKinnon, that's it, Peter McKinnon. I watch his stuff, mate, and it's just like, it's just a 30-minute video, and you watch it, and you want to watch more. It's amazing, and you think, and there's a load of people that are like that now. And there's another guy that I watch that does, Apple product reviews, and he's got like amazing rigs, Canon cameras, like proper video cameras. And I think he said like he's now what do they call it? I think is he a silver member when you get 1 million followers? I think a silver whatever. And he spent like 40 grand on cameras, and you think, where'd you So he's gone into it to do a proper job, and then I take it. Have you heard of what's his name that does YouTube videos? MB, is it? What's his name? Does all the iPhone reviews. He's got 2-3 million followers. He only uses this 4K camera, 8K camera. What is it? Is it red something red?
I can't imagine how much they cost.
Probably not. I think just the base itself is like 30 grand, just the camera itself, no lens. You think? But they've gone into it to make a business out of it. It's not just because they want to share the day.
No.
They've turned it into a business. And I think it's amazing that they've done that.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. You can't go into it thinking, Google's bad, Facebook's bad, Instagram's bad. And you've got to go into it thinking they're the distribution service.
Yeah, what's right for your business? How can you leverage it? Is it right for you? Probably. For most businesses, there's definitely a way to leverage it. And how can you do it? The reality is, we as an agency, we're in business. We're not in marketing. We're in business. We're there to help businesses grow. And if that's leveraging the tools we're experts in, great. If it's not, we'll be the first to highlight it. Yeah. But the lucky thing with all of this data is you can typically look at any business anywhere, look at the volume or the people that are already looking for that product, and then just connect the dots. And that's ideally the way you want to approach it.
Yeah. Well, on that note, mate, Charlie, it's been great, and you've given us a lot of information, a lot to think about. And I'd love to have you again in the future, if that's all right.
100%.
I
Pleasure.
thought I'd ask you now while I've got the camera, or not the camera, the microphone's in front of you. You can't even say no then.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's on record. That's the thing. That's the thing with social and audio. It's all
leaves
recorded.
A trail, doesn't it?
Exactly.
Breadcrumbs. Well, thank you for your time, mate, and I'll let you crack on.
Thanks. Cheers.